Hello and welcome, Reconsider. So life, it's complicated. We all experience crushing sadness and upset through to joy and absolute bliss. Some can be luckier than others in which emotional duality they experience. Why is this the case? More profoundly, why are we here? What is the purpose of existence? Where do we go after death, if at all? Is it curtains or maybe something more meaningful? Can we answer this profound concept, maybe even scientifically? Our main senses of taste, touch, sight and hearing define what we see and understand in this limited physical reality. But is there more to this? Is there more to purely this one existence? Are we on a journey together, learning, experiencing, mutually growing? This brings us to the theory of reincarnation, where souls experience many different lifetimes. Reincarnation stems from Latin, its literal meaning entering the flesh. Greek heavyweights Pythagoras, Socrates and Plato all had a belief in its existence. Its early origins can be traced back to early Vedic teachings in India, and even with the Celtic Druids. Present-day reincarnation is one of the main tenets to Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism and Sikhism. There is even historical evidence that reincarnation was one of the pillars of belief for Christianity. This all changed with the accession of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, who came to the throne in 527. His wife Theodora was ambitious and originally one of Justinian's concubines. In many ways she made very positive strides to protect other women and children who worked as sex slaves. But she harboured a dark, ruthless edge, especially towards anyone who stood in the way of her legacy. She was determined to be remembered, to be deified along with other Roman emperors. Christianity threatened this practice. How could you be a goddess if souls were reincarnated? She was determined to wipe reincarnation from Christian teachings. With the help of a team of monks, reincarnation completely disappeared from all church documents. This act completely changed the tenets of Christianity forever. So reincarnation, how is this even potentially and scientifically provable? Well, we can look at research from two individuals. First up, Dr. Stevenson, who was a psychiatrist and died in 2007. He discovered that memories and injuries can be transferred over from lifetime to lifetime. For 40 years, he investigated 3,000 children who recalled their past lives. The second, Dr. Micheal Newton, a hypnotherapist who died in 2016, founded the Newton Institute for Life Between Lives. At the start of his career, he described himself as an ardent skeptic. Then overwhelming evidence from client sessions set him on a completely different path. Going back to Dr. Stevenson, his early research as a physician, he became interested in finding answers to psychosomatic disorders, and he was disillusioned with the reductionism of biochemistry. This led him to change disciplines to psychiatry. In early 1950s, he met the infamous Aldous Huxley, who introduced him to LSD both professionally and recreationally. He described LSD as a magical experience and enjoyed 3 days of perfect serenity. From this, he became one of the first academics to study the psychiatric effects of psychedelics. Stevenson then started to notice reports in newspapers describing children remembering their past lives. This interested him. In particular, he was intrigued to read that children tended to have latent memories between 2 and 5 years old, but then forgot all memories between the ages of 8 and 9. He noted that memories were even more vivid if their previous life ended in a violent tragedy. In 1960, he published his first paper on the subject, The Evidence for Survival from Claimed Memories of Former Incarnations. The creator of Xerox, Chester Carlson, took special interest. Carlson funded Stevenson's trip to India and Sri Lanka. Here he was able to study 25 individual cases. It wasn't until his death of Carlson in 1963 that Stevenson learned that Carlson had left Stevenson $1 million to carry on researching into reincarnation. This huge injection of funds allowed him to set up the Division of Personality Studies at the University of Virginia, Charlottesville, USA. This allowed Stevenson to travel around the world to interview and research more deeply into the subject. He discovered 24 Burmese children who claimed they were Japanese soldiers and died during the war. They had common traits such as liking raw fish and grumbling about the heat. He also reported that in around 35% of children who previously died an unnatural death developed linked phobias. So in a previous life, if they had drowned, they sometimes developed a phobia of deep water. Interestingly, he found children who were the opposite sex in a previous incarnation sometimes had gender identity problems or would recognize themselves as gay in this incarnation. If a child in a previous life had died from a violent attack or had been horribly maimed, this would either manifest itself as a birthmark or even a bodily deformity. Obviously, this is all really fascinating, but as usual, with an area of study like this, it threatened the established scientific theory. Stevenson's research was dismissed by the majority of the academic community. Now, moving on to Dr. Michael Newton, who practiced as a hypnotherapist and was an ardent skeptic. Clients would pressure him into past life regression. He always resisted. It wasn't until meeting a young client who had chronic leg pain that, quite by chance, in trying to solve the pain, the patient during hypnosis said he was stabbed in the leg with a bayonet during World War I. After noting down information such as the location, name and uniform details, Newton was able to verify his client's past life identity. From this moment, he became intrigued and started to investigate further. His research again verified much of Professor Ian Stevenson's work, but during hypnosis he was able to venture and discover much more. He was able to explore the actual process of death and reincarnation. From all the clients in sessions, he had built up a picture of the inner workings of the process. Bearing in mind all his patients were completely unconnected and they were able to confirm exactly the same details. Stevenson was able to break it down into roughly 10 stages. Stage 1. Death and departure. After death, people float over their body and see loved ones grieving around them. Souls often attempt to tell loved ones that they are still there. Soon they feel a strong pulling sensation towards a bright light. As the soul is drawn from the body, people have reported feeling ecstatic, an immense sense of freedom. Stage 2. Gateway to the spirit world. Some younger or disturbed spirits tend to stay with the body longer, but more experienced would pass over quickly, reaching out to the light. Souls start hearing stunningly beautiful music or sound vibrations. The experiences from here vary depending on a person's past life. Usually it involves beautiful landscapes and maybe even buildings. If you're experiencing trauma and confusion after the event, at this point a loving spirit guide is there to reassure you. Stage 3. Homecoming. This is when you are formally greeted into the spirit world and start to see others who are close to you, from present and past lives, including even people who are still alive. Stage 4. Orientation. This stage involves refamiliarizing ourselves with the afterlife. Our spirit guide is heavily involved at this point. During this process, extensive healing takes place to solve any traumas from our physical life. The second orientation involves detailed discussion of our previous life and whether we lived up to our own expectations. This process can be challenging and very candid. We also discover times our guide attempted to influence us telepathically to make positive changes. We are confronted with the times we ignored the signals through fear and weakness. Stage 5. Transition. Once we are bathed in healing light, the 5th stage is supposed to be the most profound and beautiful, as souls transit through an interconnecting web of energetic tunnels. Everyone is able to communicate telepathically, so they compare notes on the physical world, sometimes with great humour. As spirits arrive at their destination, the surroundings start to look familiar, such as towns, cities and homes. Individuals are then reunited with their soul group. These may be parents, romantic partners, siblings, teachers and co-workers. Now they are ready to meet the council of elders. The entire soul group is accountable to a panel of highly evolved beings. Stage 6. Placement. After counselling with the group, souls are moved into placement. This means reacquainting with other larger soul groups. The environment turns into a classroom type scenario. Souls end up studying with their closest friends. Class sizes vary, but on average they number 15 people. This is the inner circle who you incarnate with on a regular basis. At this point, souls are confronted with a life book. They re-experience everything from their life. This includes even experiencing the pain and hurt we inflict on other people. Stage 7, life selection. At this stage, souls are ready for their next life lessons, to carry on the evolutionary cycle. Occasionally, souls are reluctant to re-immerse themselves into the physical world due to hurt and pain they may have endured. The souls and their spirits guides plan and decide what their next life lessons are going to be. They are even given a choice to select a new life, a new body. Souls can rewind and fast forward through varying scenarios to assist us in spiritual development. Obviously, the most difficult and challenging lives tend to have the biggest payoff spiritually. Stage 8, the Ring of Destiny. The Ring of Destiny appears as a sphere of bright light. As the soul moves into the ring, they start to feel excited, full of hope and expectation. Souls interface and research deeply their new lives and what they entail, figuring out valuable lessons they need to learn in order to grow. Some choose to opt for premature or even violent deaths to learn certain lessons quickly. Stage 9, preparation. At this point, souls leave the Ring of Destiny and join a planning meeting with key people in their future. Synchronicity becomes key to this discussion. Higher level beings help guide to understand symbols and events and key points to guide them in the right direction. This is the point souls struggle to remember all the cues they were expected to encounter during their new physical existence. After a final pep talk with the elders and a blast of divine light and energy, the souls are ready for the final rebirth. Stage 10, rebirth. Rebirth, the final phase, involves quiet introspection before reincarnation. The soul plunges downwards into a new baby within the womb, and the wheel of life starts again. So this is just a brief run through Newton's research. There is so much more of his finding, and it touches upon wanderers, more advanced souls and their powers being able to create aspects of our universe. It's a really, really beautiful read. I urge you to seek out his research. Agreed, yes, it's pretty mind-blowing, and yes, some of you may think that it's a load of nonsense, but when you have two researchers and others confirming similar findings, and both of these individuals have researched and tested the theories with scientific rigour, I think it needs to be taken seriously. It starts to join up so many dots about the nature of life and our time as sentient beings. And to think that there is an actual scientific data to confirm an afterlife, it brought me a huge amount of comfort. I feel it strengthens us, all having a peek behind the veil of existence. It's really beautiful. But thank you very much for joining me. It's been Reconsider. Bye-bye. Going back to Dr. Ian Stevenson, his early research as a physician, he became interested in finding answers to psychosomatic disorders and was disillusioned with the reductionism of biochemistry. This led him to change disciplines to psychiatry. In the early 1950s, he met the infamous Aldous Huxley, who introduced him to LSD both professionally and recreationally. He described LSD as a mythical experience and enjoyed 3 days of perfect serenity. From this, he became one of the first academics to study